Hey everybody, Pastor Doug here from Westside Christian Church. If I could just add to last Sunday's sermon, Until Christ is Formed in You, a message from Galatians 4 about how God's objective, His goal, His purpose is to reform us into the likeness of His Son. Well, there's a lot of stuff that I would add to. I mean, almost every movement in that message had to have what I thought was fairly critical information peeled away from it. So it would take me more than 5 minutes to add it all. But I think the thing that might be the most critical is that core idea that we are being formed into the image of Christ, that it's Christ and His image that's being formed in us. Now, we don't get that word image there in Galatians 4. We do get it in Romans 8. And we also get a similar idea in Hebrews 1. And I'm not sure if the same word is used in both, but I know that in one of them, the idea when that word image is used is the idea I did talk about stamping a coin, how you put a blank into a machine and it smashes it with a die, and the shape of that die, the negative shape of the die, is then impressed into the metal. We have that technology today. That's how we make our coinage. They had similar technology, not as fast or automated as ours, but they had similar technology back then. In Hebrews 1, it's talking about Jesus being the image of God. And I believe that's the term that's used, that He was like stamped with God. So the image of God was stamped upon Him and He was conformed to that. Romans 8, very likely using the same word. It's definitely using the same idea that we are being stamped. And I think that's why it uses the word conformed there rather than transformed. Because that's the way a stamp works. It forces you into that shape. So we're being stamped with the image of Christ, which is also the image of God. Several things that I would have used to try to illustrate that I think did come up in the message a couple times. I would say that Jesus has a way. I think of the Billy Joel song, She's Got a Way About Her. Don't know if you know that one or not. But Jesus had a way about Him. And it wasn't just His way, it was a divine way. It was a heavenly way. It was an absolutely correct and right and righteous way. And so you could watch Him and you could see that way. That is what it means to have the image of Christ stamped in you if you're walking in His way. I think I also used the word, though, flavor. Again, very similar idea, just slightly different. Maybe it appeals to more people or different people. But, certain foods have certain flavors. Certain cultures have flavors they like and they don't like. Jesus had a flavor about Him, and that's more on the intangible side. There are some intangibles here. It's hard to define what a flavor is, but clearly people who met Jesus said there's a flavor here, and some of them said, I like it and I want to have that flavor myself. So it could be, picking up the flavor of Christ. But I think accent, which is an idea that I'm not even sure I came up with until we were actually together. And I do believe it came out in the message, but I would have developed that a little more, that there was an accent to Jesus. We're very familiar with accents. We're here in Ohio. We've got resident neighboring states right next to us, and we know that in some of those states, the people sound differently than we do. I imagine we have an accent too. I've never figured out exactly what the Columbus, Ohio accent would be, though. One time I was at the park with my daughter when she was little, and there was an Irishman there, and he was with his daughter, and we started. He had this Irish accent, and I asked him. I said, well, what does my accent sound like? And he was like, oh boy, you sure enough you have an accent there. And I was like, well, yeah, but I know I have an accent. What does it sound like? Because to me, the Irish accent, the Celtic accent, even the British accent is like singing. There's a lilting quality to it. And I was telling him that, and he wouldn't tell me what my accent sounds like. I imagine that means it sounds bad. Okay, but Jesus had an accent too. And again, His accent wasn't just different, which is, the West Virginia accent is just different from Ohio, from Kentucky, from California, what have you. There's no right or wrong there. One is just different from the other. But Jesus's was correct. He had the proper accent. I don't know if you're aware of this, but actors are trained, like Katharine Hepburn. What she has is called the mid-Atlantic accent, or what she had back then, and that was a trained accent. They developed her speaking in that way because they thought that would create the biggest appeal, give her the most appeal to the widest audience. Jesus not only has a cultivated accent, he has a correct accent, a divine accent, a biblical accent. I would like to have the Irish, the Scottish accent. Some of the Scottish accents, there are some Scotsmen that you can't understand at all. I don't think I'd want that. But yeah, those accents sound neat to me. They sound nice. They sound appealing, aesthetic. But man, to have the accent of Jesus, I talk like Jesus. I sound like Jesus. That's what God is offering here in Galatians 4, Romans 8, Romans 12, when Jesus says, follow me, when he says, thy kingdom come, because that would be his kingdom coming if we become like him. That's what we're being offered. That's what I would have added if I could to that message until Christ is formed in you.